What if I told you that an Amish girl can walk out of one of the most closed communities in America with nothing but the clothes on her back, $24 in her pocket, and no birth certificate, and that an English family on the other side of that door is the only thing standing between her and nowhere? Why she ran. No Amish girl wakes up one morning and decides to run. The decision accumulates slowly over months or years in a mind that has been told since childhood that questioning is itself disobedience. She runs because something inside her stopped carrying the weight of a life that was never fully hers to choose. A marriage arranged for a man she did not pick, an education that ended at 8th grade, something darker abuse the community absorbed quietly rather than confronted. Whatever the reason, the running is always the end of a long internal argument she has been losing to herself for longer than anyone knew. How she got out. The planning happens in silence. She cannot use a phone. She cannot search for help online. What she can do is listen at the edges of conversations, make contact through someone who has access to the outside world, and wait for the right moment when the house is quiet and the road is dark. Some girls oil the door hinges the night before. Some leave a note, not an explanation, but something. Proof that she chose this rather than was taken. She packs almost nothing. Whatever cash she has was set aside over months from farm stand work. She walks to a road. Someone is waiting. The car door closes behind her, and everything she has ever known is already behind her in the dark. What she walked into. The English home is ordinary in every way that makes it extraordinary to her. A light switch she has never been the one to control. A refrigerator humming in a kitchen that smells different. A television making noise in an empty room. What the family did not anticipate is the specific quality of her arrival, the way she stands in the doorway, looking at a light switch as though it needs careful approaching. They show her to a room with more blankets than she has ever slept under. She does not sleep. She lies in the dark, listening to the refrigerator hum, trying to locate herself inside the decision she just made. The culture shock. The shock does not arrive all at once. It comes in waves. The first shower with hot water from a tap, the first smartphone handed to her with an expectation she cannot meet, the first grocery store aisle with more choices than the bulk food store she grew up in had total. She understands English more than she can produce it. What she cannot say she replaces with watchfulness, observing everything before participating, asking permission for things no one in this house requires permission for. The clothes feel foreign. Jeans. A collar that does not button to the throat. She looks in the mirror and does not recognize the person looking back. She does not know yet whether that is frightening or something she has been waiting for. Her parents' reaction. Her parents find out through community channels, not a phone call, but a neighbor who saw a car, a description someone recognized. The note tells them direction, not destination. Her mother's grief is immediate and total. Her father moves toward anger first, because anger has somewhere to go in a way grief does not. He contacts the bishop. He reaches out to anyone who might know where she went. What neither parent can say, inside a community that has no language for this, is that they understand something of why she left. The ones who watched her grow quieter over the years, who saw the weight she was carrying and named it something else because naming it correctly would have required them to look at something they could not look at inside the life they chose. What the community does. The community's response to a girl who has run moves through predictable stages. First, there is the gathering of information who knew, who helped, who could have stopped it and did not. The bishop is involved early. Deacons make visits to the family. Other women in the district come to sit with her mother, which is the Amish expression of solidarity and grief that functions the same way whether the loss is a death or a departure. Pressure is applied in multiple directions simultaneously. Her parents are encouraged to make contact and urge her to return. If anyone in the community is suspected of helping her leave, they face questions that are not quite accusations, but carry the weight of them. The English family who has taken her in may receive a visit, a careful, polite, deeply uncomfortable conversation at the door in which Amish community members explain their concern for the girl and their hope that she will be allowed to come home. What the community cannot do legally is compel her return if she is of age. What it can do is maintain the social pressure that makes return feel possible and staying away feel costly. It is expert at this. It has been doing it for 300 years. The shunning question. Whether she is formally shunned depends on one thing: whether she was baptized before she left. This is the detail that determines whether her departure is a personal decision or a broken vow made before God and the congregation. If she left before baptism, and many girls who run do so precisely because they have not yet made that vow, understanding that making it would close the door permanently, she is not formally excommunicated. She is not welcomed back easily. But the ban does not apply. Her parents can technically maintain contact, eat at the same table with her, receive her if she visits. Some families do quietly, in ways the community officially overlooks because the alternative is losing her completely. If she was baptized, the calculus changes entirely. She broke a vow. The ban follows. Her parents now face the impossible weight of the Maidung applied to their own child, the requirement to treat her as a stranger in the specific, choreographed ways the church requires. Some families follow this fully. Others find the edges and work within them. A mother who leaves food at a doorstep without sitting down. A father who parks a hired car on a road near her new neighborhood without knocking. The shunning is real. The love underneath it does not disappear. The two things exist simultaneously in a way that has no clean resolution. Who she has to become. The girl who ran away has to build a person from scratch inside a world that does not know how to receive her without also remaking her. The English family helps, usually with more patience than they anticipated needing. They help her get a birth certificate, which may require navigating bureaucratic processes she has never encountered. They help her understand what a social security card is and how it functions. They help her get a state ID that begins to make her legible to the world she is now living in. The GED comes next for most. An 8th grade Amish education is solid in certain areas: arithmetic, reading, basic writing, and entirely absent in others. She studies in the evenings at a kitchen table in someone else's house, working through subjects she was never taught with a focus that surprises the English family watching her. She passes. She now holds a credential that opens the first tier of doors the outside world keeps closed to people without documented education. What takes longer is the identity. She has spent her entire life inside a community where identity was collective, defined by the district, the Ordnung, the family name, the role of daughter and future wife and mother. Outside that structure, she has to locate herself through individual choices she has never been asked to make. What she likes, what she values, who she is when no bishop and no community is watching. That process does not complete itself in weeks or months. It takes years. And the English family that helped her begin it will not always be present for the middle of it. What she carries forward. She carries more than she expected. Not the rules, those she can put down, and most of them she does, with a relief that surprises her with its completeness. What she carries is harder to name and harder to set aside. The work ethic does not leave. She is, by any standard the English world applies, an exceptionally capable worker. She knows how to manage a household, preserve food, care for animals, maintain equipment, and sustain physical effort through a full day in ways that people her age in the English world often do not. These things find their place in her new life, even when everything else has changed. The grief travels with her too, not for the rules or the restrictions, for the people, for her mother's hands at the breadboard. For the sound of Pennsylvania Dutch spoken at a Sunday service she will not attend again. For sisters who are still inside the community and who cannot freely contact her. For grandparents who follow the Maidung because they believe it is the loving thing to do, she built a new life. She did not stop loving the one she left. Both of those things are permanently true, and they do not resolve into each other cleanly no matter how many years pass. Years later, the girl who ran is someone the community would not immediately recognize. She has her GED and perhaps more. She has a job, an apartment, a driver's license she still finds quietly remarkable every time she uses it. She has friends who did not grow up Amish and who know her story in the broad outline, but not in the specific texture of what it costs to get from there to here. She has also, in most cases, made some form of contact with her family. Not the community, not the bishop, not the district, not the life she left, but her mother, her sisters. Sometimes her father, though fathers tend to be the last to arrive at whatever version of peace becomes possible. These contacts are careful. They happen at the edges of what the community permits and what the family can manage without consequences they are not willing to face. She thinks about the English family that took her in. In most cases, she is still in contact with them. They were not her family. They could not be, not in the way the word means inside the Amish world, but they were the first people who showed her that the outside world was not the dangerous, godless place she had been taught it was, that it contained ordinary people who would set an extra place at the table without requiring her to explain herself first. That kindness existed in the English world too, in different forms and through different expressions, but recognizable as the same thing underneath. She does not regret leaving. This is the thing that surprises people who ask her. They expect ambivalence. What they find instead is a woman who carries grief and gratitude in the same hands. Grief for what the leaving cost, gratitude for what the leaving made possible. She holds both without needing them to cancel each other out. The life she built. There is a version of the story of the Amish girl who runs away that ends in cautionary notes: the loneliness, the culture shock, the family separation, the identity disorientation of a person who left one world and could not fully enter another. That version is true in parts. Those things happened. They were real and they were hard. But they are not the whole story. The whole story includes what she built on the other side of them, the credentials she earned at a kitchen table in someone else's house, the job she kept because she knew how to work harder than almost anyone her employer had hired before, the apartment she moved into when she was ready, her own space, her own rules, her own quiet on a Sunday morning with no church service to attend and no bishop to account to and no ordnung governing what she was allowed to place on her own walls. The English family that opened its door to her did not save her. She was not waiting to be saved. What they gave her was something more specific and more valuable, a transition space. A table to sit at while she figured out who she was going to be, time to grieve the community she left while learning the one she was entering. The particular kindness of people who asked nothing of her except that she be honest about what she needed and let them try to help. What happens when an Amish girl runs away to live with an English family is not a single story. It is as many stories as there are girls who have made that walk down a dark road to a waiting car. Some go back. Some find their way into the middle, not fully Amish, not fully English, living in the space between with a fluency in both worlds that belongs to them alone. Some build lives so completely outside the community that the Amish girl they once were becomes a story they tell carefully to people they trust, in rooms that are entirely their own. All of them carry the crossing with them. All of them remember the door